Welcome. Welcome to Wisdom and Hustle podcast. I'm your host, Felicia Brown, where I'm sitting down with seasoned and experienced entrepreneurs and business leaders who are sharing their wisdom on how to stay in the hustle. They are talking about their journey and how they've pivoted to where they are today. So I have the distinct pleasure of sitting down with Christina Lynch, who is the Chief Executive Officer and founder of Trydent Consultant. It was established in 2019 to support small businesses and nonprofits in gaining clarity and confidence in their finances, operations, and long-term strategy. Her journey into entrepreneurship was rooted in a lifelong curiosity about how money, people, and systems work together. But before launching Trydent, Christina spent over a decade working within and alongside a wide variety of businesses. It was there she noticed a recurring challenge. Many visionary entrepreneurs and community leaders were simply overwhelmed by the financial and operational aspects of running their org. Hence, Trydent Consultant was born from her desire to fill the gap, not just with technical services, but through a relationship-centered, values-driven approach. Her firm's motto, immeasurable consulting, intentional relationships. This reflects its mission to bring both clarity and care to every client engagement. Since its founding, Trydent has served more than 275 organizations across sectors, guiding them through various aspects of business operations. Her list of accolades is very long, but most recently, she was inducted into the Bow Collective, which honors the top 1% of Black women-owned businesses nationwide. Quite impressive. So welcome, Christina.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here today.
I'm honored to have you. So let's just jump right in. And so, you shared in your bio that you were, you were seeing these challenges among small businesses that were experiencing a lot of roadblocks, if you will. And so, while that was your impetus for launching, tell us more about what you were finding. That's your decision to launch Trident.
Well, the decision to launch Trident was really part of my own personal journey of trying not to wear all of these hats, right?
Uh-huh.
I was fatigued of having to be a different version of myself in depending on where I'm at. So the goal was, how can I create one person? How can I present myself and show up as the authentic version of myself? And I wanted what I did every day to align with that. So Trident really is not just indicative of the services we offered, but really of what we believe in, how we want to present ourselves and show up not only for ourselves, but for our clients in the world.
You simply wanted to be a model. And so the name of your business is Trident. What does that mean? Where did that come from? Tell us that.
Well, my family is from Barbados, so I am a first generation American. So the trident is the symbol in the middle of the Barbados flag. So it's really going back to that alignment of making sure that I am who I am. Of course, everything I have to do has to be done elegantly, but being able to still carry the culture and identity of who I am and what I represent.
So when we met, I shared with you that Barbados is one of my favorite Caribbean islands. So I love that you are paying homage to one of my favorite destinations. I just love the people, I love the culture, I love the food. And so there was once upon a time I was going like every year. So kudos to you for doing that and keeping that alive. And so, when you launched in 2019, what were some of the challenges that you encountered in starting the business? And what are some of those that still persist today?
I will say that the rules change as you grow and evolve.
Mhm.
Um, there's there's a level of confidence that you have going in for some where you're like, I know everything. This is simple. I can do this. How do y'all not have yourself together? How are you making these simple mistakes, right? Because entrepreneurship, you don't know until you know, and until you experience it, you're really not sure. So I would say going in, one of the things that I did, because I am a strategist, I am a professional and with very much a high level of proficiency in accounting, HR, and finance, I was overconfident because I can do it all. I've consulted all of these firms and companies and nonprofit organizations on this. It shouldn't be that hard. What I did not anticipate was that time does not work for me. When you run out of time in the day, how you prioritize shifts, and it depends on where you are in the business,
Mhm.
and also what are your goals, what are your other commitments outside of the business. So that would, I would say, is something that there was a small slight overconfidence when I first started because I can do it all. And then what persists now is I'm still battling time and trying to figure out, how can I control that
Mhm.
factor so
Mhm.
I can do everything I need to do in the day? So, that the shift and the approach to prioritization is probably one of my greatest challenges from day to day.
So, that's interesting, Christina, because, as you as an entrepreneur, you found out these were the challenges of being a business owner. Are you finding that as well with the businesses that are your clients?
Oh, absolutely. We have our strengths, and it's hard. I always say you have to get comfortable in the uncomfortable, and it's difficult to do that. So we find ourselves wanting to focus in the areas where we're most comfortable. We find ourselves wanting to focus on operations, especially if you're cash flow restrictive, as
Mm.
most small businesses are. It's very easy to want to only focus on the revenue generating activities and not the infrastructure that's going to support you making more revenue or growing to where you want to go. So it is very much a challenge that I would say not only my clients, but my peers struggle with. And then it doesn't help when I'm an accountant. So I'm going to tell you, why don't you have your financials together? This is a priority. This is important. This is pertinent. And then you're going to go meet with your branding agency, your social media strategist, your marketing person, and they're going to say your brand is really important. Why are you not prioritizing your brand presence?
Mm.
This is a priority. And then you might go down to your customer, and your customer's like, I can't believe you didn't finish this project. I'm paying you for this. This is a priority. And so you go home with a list of priorities, and nothing is unimportant. So I would say that they definitely experience the same thing, and we tend to want to focus on where we're most comfortable. And that way it's easier to manage our to-do list versus the things that we may feel a little more discomfort in doing.
So Christina, when you talk about priorities, I think about, you know, people who are perhaps trying to shift, trying to shift from like, a full-time career, a full-time job to what might right now be their side hustle. And so
Mhm.
you sat in that world as well. And so it becomes this list of priorities. Like you really are passionate about your business. You want to be a business owner and you want to focus on growing that. But you also have this day job that's funding this other priority. So how did you juggle that and manage that? And how are you seeing others doing that as well?
It is definitely a science, I can admit. And depending on the role that you have as your day job or career can determine how realistic it is for you to work on it in the time provided. I definitely was a moonlighter. So I had my 8 to 5,
Hmm.
and then 5:01 or whenever I got off work, I have to clock into my other job, which is my business. There were times I had to work before work. I had to work on my lunch break. I had to sneak a call in. We've all done that whole, hey, give me 1 second. I'm going to take my 15 and go out and take a phone call. Look, I was real cute with it too. Like, oh, I'm going to go for a walk. Whole time I'm on a call. So, but I will say that there is a level of commitment you have to have because after
Hmm.
a while, it is not fun. And so you have to really dig deep when you're tired, when you've made those contracts and you see that momentum, but you're running out of time. How can you continue forward? And so I juggled both for years. And even when I was emotionally ready to let go of my career because we tend to get to that point. We have to make sure that we're assessing and that it's actually a good time to leave. So I left maybe 2 years after I wanted to leave, only because
Mm-hmm.
financially I wasn't there. When my gross revenue matched my salary, as much as I would like to say make a logical decision, I made an emotional decision too. I said, "You know what? I'm so tired of this." I put my notice in and I left. But I did make sure I could at least exceed my threshold before I left because it was important for me to have some level of continuity. Now, if you I don't know if you've caught, I said gross revenue, which
Mm-hmm.
can be a mistake because net and gross are two different things. So net those business expenses, it still required me to have a lifestyle reduction temporarily to make sure that I was able to make ends meet. But I waited until I had the timing and I know that, okay, I know I can sustain. I'm making enough to pay my bills. I know that once I leave this sweet, sweet paycheck, I have to hit that ground running. So the 2, 3, 4 years you might put in moonlighting, it doesn't end because now if you're not fully prepared to make that same salary with your hustle, you then have to double down and say, okay, well, I got to keep it going just for a little bit longer until you're able to be comfortable and not just survive.
Yeah, yeah. And so when you made that decision to leave, which, you were at that place where you were like, okay, this is it. And you stayed longer, which a lot of people do, because I think there's this sense of fear that, am I going to still eat? Am I going to
Yes.
be able to pay my bills? And so how, when you took that leap of faith, how did you continue to grow the business?
So I very much am a planner, I think long term.
Mhm.
So those partnerships were really important for me. Having those referral sources are important. We all know it's who you know, not what you know.
Mhm.
But the level of relationship and dynamic you have is critical. You can't just exchange a business card and say, I met this girl, she's going to help me later on. You have to be able to foster that relationship authentically, not just because they can help you with something today. And then you build your community. So when I left, I had people that supported me, that were aware of the work I did or did not know, but they said, well, you know what? She's been consistent in these spaces, she showed up in these places, she's volunteered in these areas. And that was enough trust for them to send me a client or when I'm overly available, being able to touch base, have those coffees because lunch is expensive when you're building
Mm.
and really just figure out where can I find clients? Where do I belong for the stage of my business that I'm in? And finding that community so that way I can work that room to get the clients that I need.
I love that you said overly available, you know? And I suspect that means that, you were probably more available than you wanted to be. At times, particularly, when you're working for yourself, like you hear that you're never off. Unlike in your 9 to 5, you get 2 to 4 weeks off. But as a business owner, someone who works for themselves, you're never off. Even when you're on like vacation, you're never off. And so I love that you said that you're overly available because you're like, look, I'm available. I don't want to be available, but I'm available. It's
Right.
like that means I'm not working. And what were some of those ideal places when you were overly available that you would go to kind of to network and to build those relationships that would become business opportunities?
So we have to consider the dynamic of what are you offering
Mm.
and who wants that product. Because you can have a great product, but that doesn't mean people want it or they want to pay for it. Right. So I always say chambers are a great place to start, but it doesn't mean everyone's chamber is for you. Because there's definitely times I've went to the chamber, everything is great, and I'm like, "There is nothing for me here. They are really nice people. There is nothing for me here."
Right.
So I'm gonna give it a couple of times, I need to move on. So the chambers worked for me. I found smaller organizations that maybe they needed a little TLC, and I'm like, "Hey, I can help you with this because I can make my case study." So I may not be making what I need to make, but now I have an example of what I can do
Mm.
and that it leverages them up and it allows for me to attract people there. So I focused on entrepreneurial centers, building relationships with bankers. I make the joke that chambers of commerce are always a place their bankers harbor. So for what I offer, bankers are, I need to go where they are.
Right, right.
Slowly still building up the courage to have relationships with CPA firms, only because some may see me as competition, but really I'm your best friend. So learning how can I go to the association's conferences. Just, I observe the first time and then I might be more open the next time. But I'm looking at not just who is my customer,
Mm,
but who are my referral sources? Who are my partners or
mhm,
potential partners? Because you can only sell so much before people start walking away when they see you.
mhm, mhm,
So we have to be more creative than just going for the direct sale. And so I went to places not only where my potential customer is, but what are spaces where my service might be needed. And
mhm.
I'm not providing a direct pitch. I'm just showing up, building relationships, and when that service is needed, they know where I am or they know who to direct to me.
So, Christina, there are a lot of people who do what you do, and there's no shortage. You know what I say? Because people say, well, why do I need to do this? Because there are so many other companies and organizations that do what I do. Like, there's no shortage of soaps and detergents, and there's no shortage of anything. And so you are in a space where there are a lot of lot of companies, small companies that do what you do. And so how do you stand out?
Well, one, I just kind of do me. I hate to say that, but it's like I really do. I know that I do observe what are their approaches, what are their websites, what do they offer, what do they wear? Um,
Mhm.
but then I'm I also know part of my personal mission was that authenticity, right? So who am I was first because people can pick up on that, especially when I'm servicing a vulnerable area, which is money. Most people have a level of, they feel vulnerable when they're sharing and opening up their bank accounts and their books, right?
Mhm.
But I would say for me, I stand out because I'm just myself and I am more of an empath. So having space for people to express themselves is really important because most CPA firms aren't doing that. It's transactional. And whereas some communities that's okay, there are other communities like Black and Brown communities where we are more hesitant to want to share and open up because of how we have been treated in the
Mhm.
past. So it's really important it's even more important to have a safe space for them. So what I've learned was instead of looking at what other people are doing, yes, I need to be educated on the matter, but it's like, why am I doing this and how does that tie into what I'm doing? And then creating really an environment that's reflective of who we are as a company, and that's my approach. We have to be careful when we mimic, because when you mimic someone, and I know they say, "Fake it till you make it only works so well before it stops working. We can only pretend to be someone for so long. So we really have to understand not only what does the client need, but who are you? And then how do you find like that happy medium where you can differentiate yourself, but also know who are you servicing? So I cannot service everyone. So at some point, I have to be able to say, this is my target market. This is who I'm going to focus on. Yes, I need to know who else is focusing on that target market. Say, like, is this a diluted market? But I also have learned for where I'm at, this is what makes me different is me being myself, giving a bad joke every now and then. People tend to appreciate that. But also, like being able to connect personally because that is a significant lack in the accounting industry is there's not as much personal relationship building in our industry. So that was my leverage was it's a cold industry.
Mhm.
I want to work with people I like because of my own work history.
Mhm.
And also I want to be myself. So hey people, I'm going to create my brand. I'm going to find my tribe
Mhm.
professionally, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Who's going to pay for this? I'm going to make sure they can afford what I'm selling and making sure it makes sense. And then we're going to have a good time. But we have to do the market research to know what everyone else is doing and then pair that with who you are and what you offer along with what is it that the clients, your potential customers and clients want and at a level that they can afford it.
Gotcha, gotcha. And so, have you found that you've targeted to some degree like businesses of color because you and I know that just in general, like a lot of our businesses of color come to the table not really having a whole lot of business acumen. And because we want to start a business, I mean, we know that successful businesses are really the path to generating wealth in our communities. And
Mm.
so, have you found that when you work with our communities, you have to do a little bit more holding their hand and there's that trust that you have to build because we don't want you to see what we don't know?
Yes. So for sure. And I understand the trust piece for several reasons. I typically don't take that personal. But there's a lot of folks that may not be as qualified that are trying to offer the service. And so we put our trust in someone, they make a mess of it, and now I gotta trust another person to do this again,
Right.
and it's trauma. It's like, "Lord, I don't wanna trust you. I trusted the last person." So there's trauma that I typically have to work through because of somebody else. And then, yes, then there's that level of business acumen because we are newer in operating in this space
Mhm.
because we've only been integrated for 50, 60 years,
Mhm.
right? So we
Mhm.
are newer and there is a learning curve. Now, where I had to learn was I will teach you if you want to know. And if you are not ready for that, that is okay. I cannot waste my time on that.
Mhm.
Only because I've recognized there's a lot of people willing and able that are waiting for someone like me to do it. I cannot keep wasting my time on someone who's ingrained in their habits and they're not ready to step up yet because when you do have to, it is uncomfortable, it is foreign. Someone's telling you to do things that you may not believe in. You have a different perspective of how business should operate
Mhm.
because we are folks of African descent and how we generally speaking approach business is different than how it is in this country. So even from that standpoint, it might not feel natural to do it in a certain way, but if you want to generally speaking succeed in this environment, you have to use the systems that are put in place in order to access the benefits in this environment.
Got it. Got it. Got it. So I heard that you are a herbalist, and I love for you to talk a little bit about like what does that mean to people who don't understand, and how do you marry some of your principles around being an herbalist into your business?
Sure. So being an herbalist is living in an intentional living with plants. And so everyone's like, well, I got a plant.
Right.
And it's true, right? I mean, I get it. My poor money plant is not like you are supposed to be overflowing right now. What are you doing? So, generally speaking, when we think about herbalists are folks that have a deeper connection to plants. So, when you think about the gardening, creating teas, creating herbal remedies that support your physical, emotional, psychological well-being. So, yes, it's the living of with plants, but then generally there's that additional component of leveraging that relationship to be able to use it for a higher purpose. It is actually w I would say the beginning of the story of how we got to Trydent, because I
Mhm.
was a little mean, feisty little thing, and over time, it's like, "You know what? There's more to life. Why are we unhappy? Why are we mean to each other? Like, what do you mean I can't do this or that?"
Right.
So, it started really tying a lot of my loose ends together and recognizing that I don't have to fully subscribe to someone else's script. And my values are more important. So being clear about what my values are, how can I show up authentically for others and myself, and all the things that I do with my work, because I want to honor not only the plants and the earth, but also myself and those that I serve, because we are all one at the end of the day. We're all beings of the earth,
Mm.
70% water, right?
Mhm.
So it became really the guiding principles to how I approached business and how I approached my clients.
And so, do you use any of that in your presentations when you are meeting with a new client?
Not directly.
Okay.
Well, like we say, we're transparent, we have accountability,
Mhm.
we're intentional on relationships. So it shows through the principles of how we operate more so than saying, here's a tincture. You get a call, go ahead and take this. We're going to help you stay alive. Now, I'm not going to lie. I have done that before every now and then, Client starts crying, I got something for that. You say, what is it? And it's like, if you trust me, take this. It's a little weird. You're like, why is my accountant giving me these
Right,
strange, like,
exactly.
but I'm like, it's a person's in need and I'm trying to support them. But so it sometimes, informally shows up, but it's more so the guiding principles. And then most of the time when people hear it, they're like, oh, that's why you're different. Or they're like, oh, now your business makes more sense.
I love that. Love that. I love how you're bringing a little bit of yourself. I mean, and of course, you have to bring yourself to your business, but you're allowing your clients to see a side of you that a lot of times you will probably reserve for your after hours, so to speak. And you're showing them that this is how I live, and this has become a part of my business. Like, it's not separate. Like, I'm not who I am, your day job, and then you're a clown on the weekends, and then
Mhm.
your coworkers are like, "Wait a minute, you do what?" But I love that you are marrying those principles into your business, because it helps your clients see your authenticity, and if I'm saying that correctly. And I think that's what I'm hearing you say. That's really your intent, and your honesty, that I mean the best. I want the best for your business as my client. So I love that. And so, Christina, you had a long list of accolades that I did not read about, that I did not read to the audience. And I did mention Bo because I just love the Bo Collective. I interviewed Teresa, one of the co-founders,
Oh, yes.
a couple some years ago, and she was phenomenal. So I'm giving her a plug here. But a part a part of that, what are you most proud of since launching
What am I besides surviving?
Right.
This, listen, it's a hustle, y'all. Just so for the record, I'm back in the hustle right now. I thought I was resting this summer. We are not resting.
No,
So
small businesses do not take
uh,
vacation.
listen, y'all just don't know. I've hit some 20-hour days this year, so it's been rough.
Right.
I would say one of the things I'm most proud of is, so I sit on Florida State University's College of Business Accounting Department's board. I know it's like a thing, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the reasoning is I have an accounting degree from FSU. And whereas they push you to that CPA, I am not a CPA. I had to work through school and it was hard, but also recognizing that there are other approaches to accounting that's outside of this program. You have to go to one of the big four accounting firms and you're going to choose this path or that path. So, there was all the discouragement of, well, you need to get your CPA because no one's going to take you serious.
Mhm.
So then, as I'm elevating in my career, as I'm starting my business, as I'm seeing the success, it's full circle to be able to sit on a board without the credential that they emphasize for their students. So for me, it's that moment of I created my own path. Like, wow, I didn't have to do what everyone else told me to do. I
Mhm.
created the path to the point where I was their recent the recent Alumni Achievement Award recipient in 2022-ish.
Nice.
So it's one alumni a year. So out of all the applications, it was me. Again, no CPA. So being able to go from that to sitting on the board and realizing that I can be myself and show up and create my own pathway and still get the same level of respect
Mhm.
was really that validation that I may have lacked before when we have imposter syndrome. But now I'm like, oh, you can't tell your girl nothing.
Right, right.
You said, "Go ahead, sis," and I took it. So,
Yes.
I would say that was definitely a moment where I was able to pause in the hustle and say, "Okay, we should celebrate this one."
Yeah. And so, what do you think that means for other women and other people that look like you?
Well, one of my employees is a accounting student at FSU, and when I came to speak, she approached me, and her name is Christina too.
Okay.
He came up to me and she was like, "I wanna work for you." I was like, "I don't got no money for you, honey." I was like, "Follow up with me in a few months," and she did. But it gave her hope that,
Mm.
wow, there's someone that looks like me, and she has her own company, and she's showing a different possibility because I believe it's now 2% of CPAs are Black. It is low. So being able to show up and show up authentically and
Mhm.
then realize that, oh, someone might actually be looking up to me or seeing me as a goal for their career. That was really humbling to know that, we're going to set the stage. We're going to be the model to show that you can create your own way. You can still be part of the program, get your credentials, but you
Right,
can
right.
still create your own way, and there's people that support you that are gonna represent you. So I really do try, to create an employment environment, a company culture that allows for them to be themselves, and supporting those students and supporting those professionals who may have been uncomfortable in other environments, but knowing they can authentically be themselves and work to the best of their ability with their strengths without that punishment of thinking differently or being different or
Mhm.
or talking different, if that makes sense.
Right, right. You can be you. Like you don't have to be anybody else but you and still succeed is really kind of the message there. And I think that, a lot of our young people need to see that. Like, it's you believe it when you see it, right? When you see
Right.
other people who look like you doing what you want to do, like there's that possibility there. And so you've been in business what, 7 years? Is it 7 years? You started in 2019.
Twen the consulting business
Yeah,
did.
yeah,
Yes.
yes. And so what do you wish you knew when you started that you know now?
What do I wish I knew? Listen, that confidence, that's you bad, because I'm still working on my confidence, I can be honest.
Mhm.
But, there was just such a level of insecurity that forced me to operate out of fear.
Mm,
And so when I finally was able to make that switch, so I say we operate in love, not in fear.
mhm.
That was critical because when you're operating in fear, you're people pleasing, people are pushing you, they're dictating the contract, they're dictating your day. You then find yourself exhausted, completing nothing because you're only pleasing the loudest people, not the ones that are most worthy.
I love that. I love that. So and it goes back to you being your authentic self
Yes.
and you're bringing that to your business. And so, the name of this podcast is Wisdom and Hustle. And so, what would you say are some of the lessons you've learned along the way?
Mhm.
And what are some of those that your top 3 points of wisdom that you would say for staying in the hustle?
For though we all, when we think about the people who have made it, insert your version of making it.
Mhm, mhm,
It's never what we think it's gonna be. The people that made it will always say it was something that happened, the one-off, that one person, that one call, that one email. The vision you see today, yes, we need to have a vision and direction. That might not be where you end up. So at a time when we think about this year, when things started changing drastically, you gotta pivot. You gotta pivot. We can't say, "I'm gonna work through this and I'm going to be stubborn."
mhm,
You gotta
mhm.
pivot. So this year, when it was abrupt for me as well. I started talking to my clients and realizing there's a whole subset of my clients that are not struggling. And I had to pivot. I had to shift my mindset. So
Mm,
I would say number one, you gotta pivot. Be open, be flexible more than anything. Two, be aware. So social media gives us a lot of noise.
mhm.
Some news outlets is a lot of noise. You have to be able to decipher what is relevant and be aware. Know how the economy is going, know how your market and industry is performing. What are your customers or clients experiencing? Because as you are strategizing, these things are important for you. We cannot remain in our tunnel vision. You have to open your eyes and be aware of what's going on around you. And then consistency is key.
Mm,
As tired as I am, and I mean I am tired, I will wake up every day. And there are a couple things I can guarantee. One, I'm going to eat because I don't miss my meals. I'm going to eat. Two, somebody is going to be unhappy with me throughout the day, almost every day. If I get to a certain point and it's been a good day, somebody, I missed a phone call because there is somewhere, someone is unhappy with me. And that's okay. But I still have to show up and I still have to get myself up. So it's going to be a hard day, a hard conversation, a hard call. I'm going to fall short, and being okay with that, but still being consistent. I'm going to apologize and I'm going to fix it. I'm going to acknowledge it and I have to know when to bow out, but being consistent
Mm.
and working through it. So giving up cannot be an option. Hustling is to survive and hustling is to thrive. We can't do that if we're sitting and pitying for too long.
Hustling, say that again now.
Hustling
Hustling.
to survive and hustling to thrive.
Look, y'all heard it. Y'all heard it. I love it. I love it. And so, Christina, what would you consider your hustle playbook?
What is my hustle playbook? That's a good thing. One, accountability. I mentioned that before. Accountability is critical. Like, even there's times when I steer away from things. I do it every now and then too, where I'm like, oh, I don't want to deal with that. But man, there is a level of respect people give you when you hold yourself accountable, not when someone else holds you accountable. That is a hustle. Because when you can show up and say, my bad, let me keep that account,
Mhm.
people are waiting for you to say all they wanted was the apology.
Right.
It's a lot of work to change people, you know?
Yeah.
So that is a hustle, being able to show up and hold yourself accountable, building those relationships. It's people will work with you if they like you. So I am not when I first started, I wasn't the most knowledgeable and I wasn't the most experienced, but I was the most liked.
Mm.
People gave me chances because of that. So that's also critical. Build those relationships and maintain those relationships. We're not here to scam people or throw sheep or wool over their eyes. Come be yourself, be authentic, find those friendships. And I'll say every year I got new themes and new phrases. And this year, though, I will say it is keep people where they at, not meet them where they at. I'm going to keep you where you at. So with that being said, we can have a relationship. And some of my clients I can kiki with, and there are other clients I know that they might be a little dangerous.
Mm.
So hey, gonna keep it professional, X, Y, and Z. They have already told me where they want to be, and I have some options. We can manage from where that is, or I can decide to move on. But trying to force someone to be someone they're not
Mm.
isn't going to work. Trying to force someone into a system that they're resistant against is not going to work. And when you don't have a lot of time, you don't have time to waste. I can't meet you if you're not going to meet me. I'm going to go more than 50% to get you to do half of what I need for you to do. And the one thing I heard this last week, it hit me so well. I left the conference. I said, well, we done for today. She said, you can give me a yes, you can give me a no, but you cannot give me, I'll think about it, because that means you're wasting my time. I would rather you give me the no and I move on.
Mm.
And when you're ready, you know where to find me. But do not give me a maybe so.
Mm.
And that resonated because I can't tell you how many maybes I get. Let's have a second call. Let's have a third call. Oh, well, can we go through this? Show me how to do that. And then it was a waste of time.
Mm.
You could have just told me no, and I could have went on to the next prospect.
Right, right, right.
When you're overly available, that might make sense, but time is money.
I love it. There you go. That overly available,
Yes.
overly available. And so, what's next for Trydent Consulting?
Well, y'all want a sneak peek of what's next? Well, we are currently trying to build out a framework for a new offering. It's a quasi offering to get people that maybe want to get their toes wet, but they're not ready to dip all the way in.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
how can we share some wisdom and guidance with folks that want to strategize, but they're like, hey, I don't need a full service, but I do need some of that wisdom. So we're working on a framework now to be able to have more of a skeletal offering that will allow people to have access to that information and that one-on-one consulting, because we don't want to offer an e-service and have another subscription added to your list.
Mhm.
This needs to be helpful, and because we don't want to waste our time, we don't want you wasting yours. So how can we use this information for how you need it to be used and help you move that needle with the resource that you can afford?
Well, so if somebody needs your services, where can they find you?
Our website is the best place to go. So it's trident.org, TRYDENT.org. There's a form on there that you can complete. that form is important because it tells we're learning more about you. So that way we know how to best serve you, how to approach the conversation. And then that way you get the most relevant information based on what your needs are. That's the best way to reach us. Also, because I really want you to see how bomb we are, really see all the efforts, all the representation, the work, the time, the people, the partnerships. Like we're here for the people, we're here to support one another, but we want to make sure that you understand the power that we're building, not for ourselves, but for our respective communities.
Love it. Love it. Christina, thank you so much for dropping all of your nuggets of wisdom on how to stay in the hustle. And I want to thank everyone for listening. I hope you were inspired, encouraged, and motivated to start your hustle or stay in your hustle. And be sure to check us out on YouTube at Wisdom and Hustle. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, in the words of Snoop Dogg, until the next episode. Thanks, Christina.
Thank you.